Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Tabernacle Township Committee meeting for March 25th, 2019. Please stand for a flag earlier. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is called pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. This meeting March 25th, 2019. Essentially sends the record, Burlington County Times, and for your post. Post on the bulletin board in Town Hall and has remained continuously posted with required notices under statute. In addition, a copy of the notices has been available to the public and is on file in the office of the municipal clerk. Roll call, Ms. Brown. Here. Mr. Lee.
Here.
Mr. Moore.
Here.
Mr. Yates.
Here.
President. Monday, a week ago, I met with our superintendent of schools, Glenn Robbins, and invited him to be here today. So he is going to go up first. He's the superintendent of schools. You're going to learn about a problem we have with some budget cuts as far as funding coming back to the school. And Glenn, whatever we can do to help you. This is Glenn Robbins, our superintendent of schools. Glenn?
Good evening, everybody. I know you have a long agenda ahead of you, so it won't be that long. But I want to thank Mayor Barton for allowing me to come speak this evening. I met with the mayor last week to express some concerns that we've been having in our school. And it's not just our school, it's also pretty much the entire Lincoln regional area. For those who've been following along in the newspapers and so forth, there was a bill enacted last year called S2, Senate Bill 2. And what that does is relocates funding and so forth, and basically says that Tabernacle has been severely overfunded for years. I'll leave it at that. Okay. But what has happened from what we have seen, it's become a shell game. And there are schools that were underfunded and did receive money, and good for them. I'm beyond thankful that those children finally are getting some appropriate funding that they may need. But at the expense of our children and other children, that's a concern of mine. You know, I had vested interest here, family members in the school as well, working with over 100 plus employees, with over 700 children and multiple families after that, do the math. And my concern is that with this budget that we have, right now we were projected to lose $215,000. This year, we ended up losing $312,000. Now, mind you, we had anticipated that number all year long, and then within last week, a brand new number close to $98,000 more than we expected. Over the next 6 years, we're anticipating to lose $2.6 million in a budget of roughly $14.8. So once again, when you start doing the math, there's only so many programs that I can cut. And after a while, and we are being hit the hardest of the Atlantic region at this time, then we will be reducing staff. So it's some hardship to come to families and so forth. And I take an ultimate responsibility, looking at it as the superintendent, more of a father. Because I have to be responsible for all these young children, as well as all these families. So, numbers obviously speak louder than just one individual going out and ranting and talking about what's going on and woe is us. So we joined a group called SOS, Support Our Students. And there's over 75 school districts that have signed on, over 300,000 plus kids that are being affected. That's also a multiple saturation of a job market about to come about in a few months and even next year and the following year. We followed some of the newspapers. One district up in North Jersey is going to lay off 600 teaching members. Tom Driver is going to lose over $80 million in the next couple of years. They're going to be letting off close to 200 alone just this year. Once again, I will be making cuts, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, our children are the ones that matter most. The programming, the individuals that work with them day in and day out, and to think of what it could be in 6 years, to be honest with you, scares me. And that's why I'm here tonight. So like I mentioned earlier, I'm part of a group called SOS. With that group, I've already went and spoke behind closed doors with the president of NJEA. I've already spoke with the behind closed doors with the New Jersey School Board Association. I've already spoke with New Jersey Superintendent's Association, Principals Superintendent's Association, so forth. You name it, we've met with every group. And our overall message has always been the same. All children deserve the equal and fair funding. So we're asking, and I'll be going up on Wednesday to testify in front of the Assembly Committee, or Budget Committee, and asking them, quite simply, to stop the state aid cuts, to reassess it as a bipartisan party, and look at it from a whole, and see what implications are really going to come down the road. Because like I said, layoffs and ultimately kids' lives. You think about a scary statistic, there are more police officers in schools today than there are counselors. And we've seen an influx of depression, anxiety. You don't have to look too far for suicides. No child and no parent should ever have to bury their own child. That scares me. As a young father myself, that concerns me. And the more we take out of the school from our children, the harder that fight is to help those kids. So, with that being said, I wanted to thank Mr. Lee as well. He was very gracious to introduce me to Assemblywoman Gove from District 9 a few weeks ago when we hosted one of our professional development days. And just so you know, my budget that we put together, we brought in close to over 600 people this year from across the country, even from Scotland, for professional development at our schools. And that was all done by grant funding, as well as going out in solicitations and asking people for money. That had nothing to do with our budget and cost us $0 to the taxpayers. So we utilized every dime that we had. But with that being said, Mr. Lee came out and introduced me to Assemblywoman Gove. From there, I also met Senator Connors, as well as Rump. So we'll be setting up a meeting in a few weeks as well. Once again, our stance is all children deserve fair funding. My concern is also for the fact that it's not just Tabernacle schools. It's also Seneca down the street. You read the papers, Dr. Brimbaum just put out her budget the other day. She's going to be losing a substantial amount of money as well. But overall, in this area, think of all the repercussions job market-wise and so forth. Children. $24 million less coming into the schools than before. And I think you would all attest to it. Our schools are some of the best in the state, and it's for a reason. Now, there are other states, and there are other parts of the state, you could keep throwing money at these systems, and it's not going to be fixed. I take great pride in what we've already done, and where we continue to go, and utilizing and bringing people here to better our community. So, Mayor Barton and I, we talked briefly, and I could not thank you enough for your time coming out of your way. My biggest hope from all of you, ladies and gentlemen, is that I know there is a municipality alliance of some sort, and I'll be honest, there are a lot of schools that are not happy with us saying that we want all children to have fair and equal access to funding, because some feel that it's an attack on them because they finally got money. Not the case. Like I said, we're happy they got the money. Good for their children. But at the end of the day, what about our children? What about all children? They say one kid is more valuable than another is an issue to me, regardless of what age they are. It's not easy taking a step forward and putting your neck out there, and you know that some people are not going to be happy with you. But we've got to the point, like just who I am and who I've been for many years, I have no problem leading that way. So my ask of all of you is if you could somewhat align with these other towns that are struggling and have a similar message to our mission statement, which is that all children deserve fair and equitable funding. That's not putting one person in a bad spot compared to another. So that's my ask of you. Anything you can do to help us, because like I said, at the end of the day, those young children are what matters to all of us most, whether you're a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, or an uncle. We have a lot of great programs we want to give them, but this is not a scare tactic by any means. Less money means less personnel, means less programs, and less success moving forward. And we want to keep these kids successful. So if there's anything you can do on the municipality's part, we greatly appreciate it. Like I said, I'm going to speak on behalf of Tabernacle on Wednesday to the State Budget Committee and their assembly. But any type of publication, any type of stance that this board can provide to other boards or other committees across the state, because we're not alone. And there's 75, actually over 100 plus mayors and councils that are all in the same boat. So that was my ask of you. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Glenn, before you sit down, Glenn and I spoke about the two organizations that, as a municipality, we belong to the New Jersey League of Municipalities, and as you said, some of those towns that they represent are going to benefit from this, and a minority will not. So I like your idea, just the positive ask, you know, that everybody be made equal. We're also members of the New Jersey Conference of Mayors. Similar situation. Other than that, I don't know of any other statewide organization that we're members of, and what I would suggest to the committee is that tonight we ask for an introduction of a resolution supporting the school. We can draft that, and if we can get a motion in a second, we can pass that tonight. Glenn can have that with him on Wednesday. We can share that with the League of Municipalities and New Jersey Conference of Mayors, see if they're going to be weighing in, because they do have legislative committees themselves, to see what their position is and whether they would take that position. Anyone else on the committee have any other ideas on how we could advance this forward?
As Glenn had touched on, I had the opportunity to meet with the superintendent from Southampton and also from Lumberton, as well as with Southern Go. But I've also had some discussions with other mayors as recently as yesterday, and some of the things that they're trying to do the same thing we are. Where do we go from here? And the one thing I'm intrigued by is the SOS group, and it's an informal group that has been put together because of this issue. And in the conversations I had yesterday, one of the thoughts that had come up was that although we have the relationship with the Conference of Mayors and with the League, can we look at having a letter that goes out to the legislature that says we recognize the challenges that our districts are in, and we would appreciate equal distribution of funding. A nice letter is how you actually said really well, Joe. A nice letter. But I think if we can collectively with other districts sign on to just a standard letter that says we're concerned about distribution of funds collectively, I think what that does is it really raises the bar a little bit, that the municipalities are paying attention and not just depending on the school board to do it on their own. It's not just a school board issue. I didn't think about this until the other day, but Seneca's got the same problem. And we've got 2 schools which are in our district, which are in our town, so it's going to hit us probably the hardest. But my recommendation would be to collectively make some phone calls to other municipalities with assistance from Glenn to reach out and say, would you sign on to a letter? That's a nice letter, but a very simple letter that indicates that we are in an alliance with our school boards and we need fair distribution of funds.
First off, the state cuts and have a very good conversation about it. So I wanted to wait till tonight, but I can definitely provide the names of all the superintendents and SOS, and I'm pretty sure they'd be very happy to reach out further than what they've already done with their mayors and so forth. Some have not, but I wanted to see how we can move forward tonight, possibly, as a group, a stronger group in numbers, to just make our point being known that all children are, should be given, the best of the best, and no kid should be put against another.
Well, we can draft a letter that the committeeman Lee spoke about, and they said we can also do a resolution, and then that letter could be shared with the mayors of those 75 SOS numbers if they wanted to sign on to it, quite simply. And having a unified voice between the superintendent of schools and the mayors of those schools that support the issue that you're involved in. Is everyone on the committee okay with that? If so, have we got a motion to do that and a second?
I'll make it.
I'll second.
Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Quick question, can I vote on this?
Why not?
I want to make sure I can.
It has nothing to do with your individual employer.
Well, the fact that he said it could impact jobs, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think you're okay on this. It's not a direct personal interest.
Just want to make sure. Yes.
Do I ask the boss first? He's one thing, but that's the other thing. Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Anything else from the committee for the superintendent? Okay,
Thanks, Mike.
just briefly, and we have a big agenda tonight, but if anyone from the public has a suggestion, what you could do to assist the superintendent in this matter, because, you know, what we're hearing is probably budget increases too, Glenn, going forward, not just with the Tabernacle School, but probably the Lenape School District.
It's one of your regional school districts, as well as, like I said, over 100 school districts. The state's whole ploy with S2 is that, and this is the funny part, and I have to laugh because I'm in the same category, we don't pay enough taxes, and we need to pay more taxes to the school, which I can't shake my head at enough. So that's part of the ploy, that since we've been overfunded, we should pay more.
Which you're
But I'm
capped
stuck at 2%.
you're capped at 2%. Okay, so if anyone has any positive comments to make, how you think you could help them, please raise your hand, come forward. If not, Glenn, will you advertise your email address?
Please, yeah, robinsg@topschools.org, or just come simply knock on the door.
Okay.
You know, small town USA, and just knock on the door. I'd love to talk to any of you. And thank you all for tonight, because I look around the room, including myself, and I know we're not going to be here in 50 years from now, 40 years from now. But what you're doing tonight will speak volumes for years to come for the city of Tabernacle, Township, Tabernacle. Thank you.
I believe Fran, Joe, I believe Fran has a question.
Yeah, this is just a scheduling question. Superintendent,
Excuse me,
is
what
your...
was your name?
What?
What was your name, I'm sorry?
Fran Brooks, 78 Moores Meadow Road.
Just trying to help out, Sean.
Just a scheduling question. Is your draft budget available?
Preliminary budget has been submitted to the county. So we approved that on Monday night last week. It's going to the county tomorrow, and then our standard budget will be approved, I think it's April 28th or 29th, whatever that Monday is, and that will be fully publicized.
Okay, that's the hearing on the budget?
Yep.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. And Glenn, thank you for what you do for the children. A big reason that people move to Tabernacle Township is because of the quality of education that you provide at your level and at the high school level. And thank you for championing this, and good luck with hopefully getting some of all that funding restored.
Thank you. Thank you all. Sorry to take up your time. Thank you.
Thanks. Sam Moore, our liaison to public safety, had reached out to the state police and asked them if they would come tonight and give us a brief presentation. I see two of New Jersey's finest standing in the back. If you two gentlemen would like to come forward and introduce yourself. I will tell you, I have a history with the state police. I served on the State Police Museum Board with Colonel Williams for many, many years. In fact, the pin that I'm wearing was given to me by Colonel Williams, which is a pin that only his board members have. So could you introduce yourselves?
Trooper Setnar, Red Lion Station. Trooper Taylor Kamara, Red Lion Station as well.
Sean, did you get their names? Okay, good. And could you just give us a brief summary of some of the items that you see going on in Tabernacle Township? Positive, negative, and what we can do better?
So I guess one of the big positives is there's nothing glaring that we were provided that would really raise alarm. I think that's probably the most important. Us from a local standpoint, I know we've tried to put a little more emphasis on patrolling Carranza Road around the high school, because I know people can drive a little fast, so that's been a priority just to maintain safety with the schools. Obviously, we have school resource officers throughout the schools in Tabernacle. But like I said to Mr. Moore, this is probably easier facilitated with questions. If there are anything, hopefully we can answer or point you in the direction to an answer if anybody had anything.
Yeah. Before we open up to the public, I'll ask the committee if they have any questions or comments that they'd like to share with you.
I know a lot of folks near Seneca, but Hawken Road, between the 206 corridor, Natural and Carranza, that's questions come up a lot to me, you know, on a personal note from folks.
Hawken Road as a whole is a major problem.
Yeah.
It is. I mean, people, I saw a school bus doing at least 60 in a 25-mile-an-hour zone, which I thought was absolutely ridiculous.
Did it pass you?
They were coming at me, and I was stopped for trying to make a left on Lee Drive, and that bus wasn't moving. But I know it's a 35-mile-an-hour zone, it's a 40-mile-an-hour zone, a 25 or 45, but at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, when I'm taking Hawken Road and I have people passing me, I'm doing the speed limit, they're passing me, I'm going, this is not right. Holton Road has moved.
I've had several residents come to me and ask, is there anything you can do? And I said, well, I'll reach out to you folks. I know you're busy here, it's like everything else, you're patrolling a large area, but anything you can do during that hours would be greatly appreciated.
I'll talk briefly about that. A lot of the concerns that's already been brought to our station commander, Lieutenant Gilman, and what we have is a board with pretty much agenda topics for the day. So whatever happens from the first shift will be relayed to the second shift. And as you have already pointed out, there has been a major concern about the speed control, especially around Carranza, Hawkins, and Oakshade. So as the troopers are available, we are doing traffic cone details in that area, specifically in the beginning times when school is opening up towards the end of the school day when school is letting out. So we have been increasing patrol around in those areas. But whenever people see an issue, the more people that keep either reaching out to the station or making it known, it'll definitely put it to the top of our priority. But we have been increasing our patrol in those high target areas.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the things that we have in our budget this year, we're going to be passing our budget very soon, is to buy the portable speed limit signs that actually tell you how fast you're going. And our thought is to purchase 2 of them, one can go each way, and it'll be portable, and we can move it to different parts of the township to make people aware of that. Do you see those as an advantage? Do they work? Do they slow people down?
Yes, definitely. Especially with, as you said, it shows you your speed that's coming up, and some of them are a lot more high tech. They'll have the red and blue lights that are shown. So if we're somewhere in the area, if they see the red and blue lights, of course that'll help them to reduce their speed. But if they see that the Township of Tabernacle is aggressively looking at this as a focal point, then that would definitely, if we're not around in the area, because we are covering 3 other towns as well, if we're not around in the area, they'll at least know that if we're not there as a presence, those speed devices are there.
And I know we've been reached out to from the superintendent of the Wharton State Forest about off-road vehicles riding in the forest that's in Tabernacle Township. And Committeeman Moore is our liaison to public safety. He's going to be scheduling a meeting with them, and we'll be reaching out also to the state police and other stakeholders to find out, how can we control this off-road vehicle issue. We see young kids riding dirt bikes on our roads, quite fast, and they're small kids, and they're on Tabernacle Road, they're on Carranza Road, they're on Flyer Road, going from point A to point B, and I know it's a challenge for you guys to engage them and stop them, but we're going to talk about how we can stop some of this from going on in the woods, so to speak, especially in the Wharton Forest.
A lot of them are migrating from like the Medford Park area out that way, Powell Place Road, Shuey Place, that way mainly, of course, on the weekends. And that's where a lot of the resident uproar's going, they're going by their houses with these breezers and all kinds of stuff to get out to the newly part of Wharton State Forest, which they laid back there even before it was that, when it was owned by another cranberry company. But that's all being brought to our attention by unhappy residents with all the noise and what's going on. So, just to keep you guys informed.
Yeah, we're definitely made aware of that, especially once the weather gets really nice, especially around 70, all the back roads. There's been a couple of times, we're not trying to make it any less safe for the regular residents as opposed to the people on the ATVs as well. If they see us behind them, then they'll be more inclined to actually speed up or whatever. We don't want to have an accident trying to stop them. So in situations like that, especially since it's kids that are doing that, it would have to more so come from the parents. And I don't know if there's something, whether it be whatever, just to inform the parents and just let them know about the severity about this, because pretty sure that nobody wants anything happening bad to their kids.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it wasn't a boy from Tabernacle, but a boy who lived just outside of Tabernacle lost his life on an ATV not far from the Tabernacle line about a year and a half ago.
I think I remember that.
Yeah, so, and that's a sad situation. So, yeah, I hear you. So, education is a big part of it, too. We can talk about that when we put this meeting together. Okay, so anyone from the public have any questions or comments to our 2 troopers who are here tonight?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes.
I have a question, that's okay. I've recognized that that staffing has been a challenge. I don't want to pin you down on a difficult question, but an easy one is this. Recognizing that everyone that staffs Red Lion Barracks comes from essentially a lot of different places. Is there anything more that we ought to be doing in terms of orientating or familiarizing the fellows that come into Red Lion on our town and different parts of different hotspots, for lack of better terms? Is there anything more that we can be doing as a committee to familiarize the crew at Red Lion on the ins and outs of Tabernacle?
Well, I mean, for the most part, when we do have a lot of people that change different stations, and once the new academy class they graduate, they'll be at the station for approximately 9 to 10 months if they go to another station. But each squad has a good amount of senior troopers that are well versed within the area. So before they actually go out on the road on their own, they have a trooper coach program. So they're not out there on the streets by themselves. They have a rigorous 4-stage period where they're with a senior trooper, somebody who's been at the station for at least a year and a half, 2 years. So they are familiar with the hot spots, the local hangouts for people, and whatever the case may be. So just as long as you continue to support us, we have everything in line for the senior troopers to advise them on Tabernacle and the other towns that we cover as well.
Well, is there anything more that we can do? Please don't hesitate to ask. And again, thanks for coming and for your support.
We support you guys 150%, so thank you for what you do for our town and our residents.
Thank you. Thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Okay, public comment on agenda items only except the second reading ordinances. Anyone from the public want to comment on agenda items? Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Two different topics. One concerns the Irish Causeway matters. One's an executive session. The other is an award of a contract. My questions are, what's the subject matter that's being negotiated in the contract negotiations? Can you be more specific about that?
Continue, and we'll answer when you're done.
All right. Is there a relationship between items 14 and 16? 16 is the award of the contract for an appraisal. I'm assuming, and I might be wrong, that the appraisal has to do with acquisition and condemnation. And that relates back to item 14, is how can you negotiate in good faith to make an acquisition without an appraisal? So that's what I have on those two items. And then regarding ordinance 2019-3, I'd like to hear some discussion about what the revenues are from the existing fees that we get from the existing fee ordinance, and how much are we anticipating that we'll receive from the proposed fee ordinance, and how much in costs are we expecting those new fees to cover? The flip side of that is how much costs don't the existing fees cover? Because obviously there's a relationship between the costs you're trying to cover and the fees that you're levying to achieve those. And that's it. If you could get to those in your discussions,
Thank you.
I would thank you for it.
Okay, anyone else from the public? Sir, no? Mr. Brooks?
I think,
Yes, sir.
yeah.
Yes, this is regarding the,
Mike, we're not there yet.
oh, we're still on the, okay.
Did you want to speak?
Yes, but
Okay,
the ordinance.
name, address, and then you can speak.
Okay. I hope I'm in the right spot here. This is for the ordinance for the change in parking, gross vehicle weight.
That is on the agenda, yes.
Okay, so I can talk about that now?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
That is second reading?
Mike, that's the second reading, Mike.
That's the second reading. You'll have an opportunity when we get to the second.
All
reading.
right, thank you.
You're welcome. Apologize. Anyone else? Mrs. Brooks, to speak?
No, thank you.
Okay. Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. Good evening, everybody. I'd like to speak a little bit about Resolution 2019-48 that has to do with the road program. There let's call 4 roads that are being proposed to be reconstructed or resurfaced, it's unclear. 2 of those roads are not on the report that was put together by Mr. Kramer, laying out what the 2019 road projects are. And this was a proposal that was written in regards to a statement that Mr. Barton made that we really need some projections here. We need more of a plan about that would schedule the roads. So 2, and that is Hawkins Road and the Kramer Road. And Kramer Road, Route 206 to Old Indian Mills Road are not even on that report that Mr. Kramer put together. In addition, none of the roads that are being proposed here are rated anywhere near as low as Carranza Road. And Carranza Road obviously has been in our news for quite a while, and I recognize that there is a joint grant out there for it, but, and Mr. Moore, I don't know if you are aware of the studies that have been done very recently by Mr. Kramer and Mr. Guzzi regarding all of the roads in Tabernacle. But if you aren't, I would encourage you to take a look at all of the information that's available. But notwithstanding, none of these roads are rated anywhere near as low as Carranza Road and our portion, which you, Mr. Moore, are very aware of, which you drive it multiple times a day. And it's time to finish Carranza Road. I know you have a grant out there, but it's a long shot, that grant. And that means that at least half of the road, if not more, will not be paved, and we're going on 35 years. So to put in roads, to propose to put out bids for roads that really ranks significantly higher in the quality of their surfacing, given the disastrous condition and the dangerous condition of Carranza Road, it's just wrong. It's just wrong. Regardless of how any of us might feel about protecting someone else's road or doing favors for other people, this is exposing so many people, exposing actually the residents of Tabernacle to a huge amount of liability, because that road is so dangerous to drive. And it's time to finish it. Make an arrangement with Shimon. I mean, there are examples of making arrangements with Shimon in the past. So make an arrangement with them, but get the road done, and don't start putting out bid proposals for roads that weren't even in the proposals that were written in the last 2 years. It's really time to get it done. Time to get the road done.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else from the public? Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public portion. We're going to have a public comment on our municipal budget. The municipal budget, at our next workshop, the committee will hopefully come to a consensus and finalize that budget, and we'll be introducing that. But if anyone has any comments from the budget. I'm sorry.
How long do you want me to talk about it?
Oh, okay. Give them 3 minutes to talk about it. So if anyone has any comments on the budget, I do have some information that Stu gave me on the operations and of the fire company. And Stu, I'm going to give them to LaShawn and ask her to give copies to all the committee members so that we can digest this, understand this, and before we finalize our budget. But did you guys have any comments, anyone from the fire company, on the budget or what you gave us tonight? No? Okay. Okay, LaShawn, we'll get them to everyone. So anyone else have comments on the budget for 2019? Mr. Brooks.
Thank you. Stuart Brooks, Moore's Meadow Road. 2 comments. One regards the proposed tax increase of somewhere between 2 cents and 3.8 cents. I have to point out, and it gives me no pleasure to point out, that while the township finds itself short roughly $250,000 if the 3.8 tax increases levied. That it wasn't too many months ago that the committee didn't take the opportunity to negotiate a contract with the TRS that brought some revenue, some fair amount of revenue into the township. Every other township that has some sort of insurance billing program gets some, if not all, of that revenue into its general fund for uses just like we're proposing in the general budget. And not only were there no revenues that came in through that contract, there wasn't even discussion by the members of the committee as to costs or revenues or anything having to do with that. The entire discussion, for the most part, was done behind closed doors in executive session, and the resulting contract seemed to come out as a fait accompli. My second comment has to do with the extra monies allocated for legal services, which Mr. Haynes indicated were largely for OPA work. And my comment is that an investment in effective training and compliance is going to be much more efficient than litigation. Litigation is a bad result because it's so costly. And not only has it been costly, but the township's record in litigation has been, I think it's 0 and 8. So I think money would be better spent in compliance and training, and with the intention of avoiding litigation, making records available where they should be available. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Kathy, girl?
Happy Burger, 18 Woodside Drive. Are we still at 3.8 cents? Because the way I read the agenda, you were going to have some discussion and then public comment.
Yes.
Okay. Is the idea to scrub the budget a little bit more at your next workshop and then introduce?
I can't speak for all five, but that's why I hope it is going to happen.
Okay, well, I guess I'll be happy to send you some information and some ideas. But I do have comments of, at a prior meeting, I heard you say we're not replacing the public safety director. Yet we have $12,000 in the budget this year, which is a $2,000 increase over last year, but we say we're not supplying or replacing this person, so why would we budget funding at all? So that's one of my questions. Municipal court, you were asked several months ago when we talked about the shared service with Woodland Township, what we anticipated the revenue increase to be. That was never answered. However, we're increasing the budget by $58,000 in salary, wage, and O&E. Well, we're almost at a penny, guys. Just letting you know. And I have several things, so I'll send you questions so you can look through it and answer it. I believe I also read in Mr. Haynes' report that we're looking at an increase every year due to the current debt service. Do you think it's time to tighten our belts this year on debt service? And maybe we don't do as big of a capital improvement plan? Just a suggestion. And we look at exactly what's necessary and not what we'd like to see happen. I think we have to do that with this whole budget. So those are just my comments. I have things broken down line by line item, so I'll email something out that can be shared. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else from the public? Mrs. Brooks?
Fran Brooks, Moore's Meadow Road. I'm going to bring up a topic which is a standard bugaboo, and that is you're intending to do, at least from the last meeting, you're intending to give a 2% increase to employees. It's the burden of this budget always falls on the residents, the taxpayers, and it would behoove the committee to reconsider that 2% increase and come up with a new percent increase, maybe 1.5, so that the burden of the increase is more fairly spread. It's not that the staff doesn't work hard, and however, the 2% increase is a constant with your budgets. I think there was only 1 year where you actually gave a 1% increase, 1.5% I think it was, a few years ago. But it's time to rethink that, because you're already supporting an increase with this school. School taxes are going up as far as they can possibly go up. And, you know, we need help. We need some help here. And to constantly give that 2% across the board salary increase for employees is just simply unfair to the residents who are shouldering the complete burden. So I would ask you that you reconsider that 2% increase and adjust it. Since we're looking at 10 years of at minimum 2% to 3.8% over the next, every year over the next decade. So I would ask that you do that, and I'll have more comments to make at the next meeting. So thank you.
You're welcome, Mr. Brooks. Anyone else from the public want to comment on the budget? Okay, seeing none, we're going to close the public portion to the budget. Ordinance on second reading, and this one will have a public hearing, is 2019-1, amending Chapter 7, Traffic, Section 12 of the revised general ordinances of the Township of Tabernacle. Open it to the public for comments.
This is the second reading of ordinance 2019-1.
Correct, that's correct.
Yes.
Yes, sir, please stand up.
Lyle Manheimer, 5 Log Road. Does everyone understand what the GVR, or gross registered weight, means?
I do, if you want to explain it to everyone. You're welcome to.
Well, as long as everyone understands what it means, this is quite an increase in the weight that you're going to put on back streets in the Township of Tabernacle. Now, we just heard one of the residents complaining about the horrible condition of Carranza Road, and there's certainly a lot of back streets that could use resurfacing too, but this puts a lot more burden on these streets by increasing this to 17.5. I think it's totally unwarranted and unreasonable. I don't see why we need to do this. I'm lacking in understanding of this. 12.5 should be more than sufficient. I'm sorry, 12,000 should be more than sufficient. And now we want to up this by almost, well, 2.5 tons. And that's a lot more weight that you're going to put on these back streets, not to mention having this stuff parked in somebody's yard. I mean, we make all kinds of ordinances here in this township about trailers and RVs have to be parked next to the house, can't be in front of the house, have to be next to it, have to be behind it. And now we're going to allow dump trucks and stuff to be parked in the side yard. I think it's totally uncalled for.
Okay, any other comments?
No.
Okay, anyone else have comments? Yes, sir.
Yes. Just to reiterate what Mr. Manheimer.
Name and address.
Michael Ruggiano, 406 Old Indian Mills Road.
Okay, thank you.
Just to reiterate what Mr. Manheimer was talking about, just as a primer, the gross GVR, the gross vehicle weight, is what the manufacturer declares that truck can carry. So it's a combination of the curb weight plus the payload. So if the curb weight of a truck, for example, is 5,000 pounds, and the GVW is 10, that means that they can only carry another 5,000 on top of that. So, you know, when this whole thing came out, and I saw that the GVW wanted 17.5, I thought about it, and I said, wait a second. The spirit of this whole proposal was the fact that there were some complaints about commercial vehicles being parked on roads, okay? So, when you look at what exactly is the GVW, I went into Ford, and I got a copy, and I'll give everybody a copy of this. But what I did, just to clarify what we're talking about here, this is the #1 manufacturer of trucks in the world, Ford. Everybody sets their goals and standards against what Ford does. Chevy copies them, GM does, everybody. So if you look at the first page, the F-250s, every F-250 pickup is 10,000 pound GVW, okay? And if you look, if you turn it sideways and look, you see that's an 8-foot stake platform body, an 8-foot utility, catering truck, okay? And all of those are going on that pickup frame, okay? Then if you look at the F-350, which is a Super Duty pickup, still considered a pickup truck, and you look at the bodies, you can put an 8-foot stake body, a utility body, a catering body, and the GVW standard there is 10,000, 10,004, 11,001, depending upon what body that it has on it, okay? So then the next series of trucks that Ford has are the F-350. And they're not called pickups. They're classified as chassis cab. So if you look down the side here, you can see all the different platforms, the 8-foot stake, a dump body, a 9-foot dump body, a 10-foot stake body, a 10-foot dump, a wrecker, a catering truck, a 12-foot van. And you look at the gross vehicle weight on those, and they range anywhere from 10,005 to 11,005. So right now the current ordinance covers all those. Problem is, when you start going up, you look at the next page, you'll see an F-450 Super Duty. And you look down the side there and it says 8-foot stake, dump truck, I mean it gives you everything, utility, 12-foot van, okay? Let's see what else, 16-foot van, okay? And you look at the gross vehicle weight there, and it's 16,005. Okay, so you haven't even reached that 17.5 number yet. Now, the next page gets serious, okay? That's the F-550. And if you look at that, that includes some bigger trucks, okay? It goes up to an 18-foot van, a wrecker, a roll-off wrecker, and the gross vehicle weight on those is 18,000 pounds. So they're like 500 over what the proposal is. But, you know, I don't think that this is necessary, changing the gross vehicle weight. And I would encourage the committee to reject this ordinance.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
John Galito, Moore Road West. I have a couple of questions here. Is there a limit to the number of trucks and trailers with commercial tags that can be parked in a residential lot?
Yeah, go. Keep your questions going, we'll respond to them.
Oh, okay. And in other townships, are they changing their limits to 17.5? I'd like to know where this all came from.
Okay.
Can you answer that now?
Yeah, we can answer
Oh,
that,
okay.
yes.
All right, and when you're going to this change of usage from 12 to 17.5, do you have to get the approval from the Finance Commission? That's it.
Yeah, any other questions?
Those are my 3 questions.
Okay.
All right.
All right, we're gonna get all comments and then we'll, as a committee, we'll discuss this and we'll cover all topics. Anyone else for the public?
Yeah, I have a question.
Oh.
Couple of comments. Gary Castellan, 409 Old Indian Mills Road.
You did that? Come up here, the microphone is up this way.
Okay, Gary Castellan, 409 Old Indian Mills Road. I just want to discuss the higher vehicle. One of my questions is, does it going to have the backup alarms? Are you going to listen to this beep, beep, beep in the middle of the night? And a question from your jam session notes. One of them, you said it was in the best interest of the community. How did you determine that? And what was the other question I had? Hold on, I'll check my notes. You also said you were getting complaints. This is why you wanted to raise the rates. Who complained? People wanting to park their trucks or people wanting to get illegal trucks out of there? So that's it.
Okay.
What we got on that?
Anyone else from the public?
Yes, Brian Ahern, Moore Road West. I just have a couple pictures here that I took today of the vehicles that are in the weights. This is a U-Haul truck right on Route 70 here. If you look at that truck, the weight is 14.5. That's a pretty big truck. Now here's a 10,000 pound truck. Here. Another 15,000. Yeah, 15,000 here. These are all under the 17.5. They're big trucks.
They all box trucks, Brian?
Yeah, they're box trucks. I mean, there's dump trucks, there's other trucks that, I'm just, for instance, so these are the big trucks that we're gonna see. Now, state police were just here, and they were talking about speeding, everybody agrees for speeding. So these trucks are heavier, they're harder to slow down, you have kids on the road. You know, our kids they're gonna be in danger with these trucks.
Thank you.
And then there is backup alarms, and these trucks are diesels. People start these trucks up in the middle of the night. The guy next to me, he works odd hours, he's on call. So he'll start his truck up at 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whenever he gets a call. So he wakes up my kids. He has a crew that comes over there, they open the doors, they shut the doors. My dog goes nuts, he starts barking. So this is the kind of trucks we're gonna get. That can be anywhere. That can be in Harrogate, the houses are really close together. So you're gonna have these diesel trucks, you're gonna have all these backup alarms, and it's gonna wake up people. And it's going to kids go to school. And they're waking up at 4 in the morning, so it's hurting them. So I say, I oppose this. And I thought Southampton was 8,000 pounds. So where are we going with 17? It's crazy. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Anyone else from the public? Sean?
Hey, Sean Colton, 438 Medford Lakes Road. I'm probably going to be the only one with this opinion. I actually think it's a good thing. We pride ourselves on being a country community. Big thing of being a country community is guys, they have work trucks, they work blue collar jobs. This doesn't affect me. I live in the agriculture section of town, this doesn't affect me at all. But I still believe that our whole township is a country community. I mean, we don't have sidewalks, we do a lot of things that are a country community. To me, this just seems like people that, I don't know, moving in from the city or something, and they don't like what they're seeing. So that's my 2 cents. I think it's a good thing. Allow people to bring their work trucks home, because there are a lot of people that bring their work trucks home from companies that they work for. They need them. And it's absolutely ridiculous to think that they would have to park it somewhere else. So that's just my 2 cents. Appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we're going to close the public portion and open it up to the committee for discussion. To answer some of the questions that were raised, our construction code official / zoning officer is the one that proposed this because he felt that there were vehicles that you could buy, pickup style vehicles that would be in violation if they were parked in our township. Thank you for the information on the Fords and the different weight classes. I haven't looked at all the weight classes of all makes and models to see which ones do approach 17.5. And he is not here tonight to comment on that. But for the rest of the committee, if you want to weigh in on this.
Well, the question I have is actually I have a few. Did Tom investigate this the way this report that Mr. Ruggiana handed us is in, I mean, absolute detail as far as the gross vehicle weight, payload, size of the vehicles? From what I'm hearing, and just by going by this report, it sounds to me like if we have commercial business being run out of a residential community. So why on earth would we want to change the ordinance to enable someone to run a commercial business when we have areas in the town for them to do so? That's my question.
Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Go ahead, Steve.
To piggyback on that, I've done a little bit of research on, or at least from folks that are in developments that this affects. My question is more so, going back to one of the questions that was raised, how many vehicles and trailers are allowed in each property, and how are we policing that? I concur with Joe. I think this is I'm not in favor of this. I'll just flat out come out and say that. I've bought more than one truck in my life, and I can tell you there's a lot of modifications that can be made. I really appreciate the report that you brought. This is very informative. I've looked through this more than once in different formats when I bought everything from a F700, which is a dump truck, down to a F-150. And I think that considering I'd like to understand more how we got here than anything else before I make a decision about what we're going to do, but I'd like to understand where this came from, other than Tom's analysis regarding the size of pickup trucks.
I just, to piggyback off them, 100%, I didn't realize till I read that real quick. I mean, just hear how big the vehicles are, and I'm a farm guy, you know, and it just goes to show you the GVWs and the size of vehicles we are getting. So my opinion is we table it and get further discussion and input, you know. That's my opinion right now until we see where this is coming from, for what, and how big a truck's we're gonna have.
Jim, you have any comments?
Well, I would suggest tabling it, sending it back to a workshop meeting and have Tom come to the meeting, because Tom's the one that brought this to us. And I think Tom should be the one to clarify and look at the information that Mr. Reggiano did bring to us. And, you know, based off of his comments, he was saying, and I'm gonna be really honest with you, he literally stated that most of the trucks that are purchased today exceed this weight that are already on the properties. So that was what started this discussion, and it was probably the first workshop in January where it started.
It was, yes.
So I would...
Before we vote to table this, could we hear Doug? Let Doug tell us, our Public Works Department, how many of our vehicles would fall inside that criteria?
What would fall into that is we pick up the utility body truck and the Ford F-450 stake body. Everything else I have is higher than that. The TerraStar, which is our smallest dump truck we have right now, is a 19,000 GVW truck. I think the intention was to cover up to an F-450, because that now comes in a pickup style configuration and is used more extensively in pulling trailers and recreation. I think some of this has to do with recreation vehicles, the weight of recreation vehicles that people are parking on their home. Now, whether we want to do an exception for recreational vehicles to cover that weight, may be a better alternative to do than just going gross vehicle.
You're talking about a mobile home?
A Class A, right, or Class C, depending on what chassis. The Class Cs are predominantly on an E450 chassis.
Well, from what I gathered and from what I'm listening to from the public, it doesn't sound like anyone would have a problem with a mobile home parked on the side of someone's home or in their driveway. It's the everyday use which seems to be happening with a commercial vehicle.
But the way our ordinance is written right now, I don't think Mr. Boyd thought he had the variation to say, okay, as a 15,000 GVW RV, you're good, but because it's a state body or because it's diesel, I can't, you know, no. So maybe the correction should be that we keep the weight either near the 12 or very close to that, and exempt RVs to a certain extent. We really don't want to have a tandem axle converted 55 passenger bus being parked on an acre lot, but a Class C motorhome or even a small Class A or something like that.
Well, what'll wind up happening is you're going to have school buses getting parked on people's yards. because they work for, let's say, Wolfenton or whoever, and that gross weight falls under. So they'll be bringing these vehicles home and parking them in their yards. And like the gentleman said, they're gonna warm that diesel up.
40 passenger or 48 passenger school buses on an F-750 chassis, so it's above that rating. But you're right, a small minibus may be under that 17.5, which is probably in that 16 range.
Every local delivery driver.
Okay, well, the current ordinance is 12,000 pounds, and with the information we're given, if you look at a F-250, 4x2 or 4x4 crew cab is 13,000 pounds, so that vehicle would be in violation of our current ordinance. So, you know, our code official was, maybe the number's too high, the 17.5, but I think it needs further discussion like everyone else agrees. So if we could have a motion to table this and take this up at a later date.
You can't interrupt.
I can't interrupt. Let's not clear it up.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to table it until we have further discussion.
A roll call?
All right, I'd like to, what are we gonna, what's the direction of Tom Moore? I want to understand that. Because I think we've got two problems here. We've got one, that we've got some, we've got commercial businesses, from what we're hearing tonight, being run out of residences. That's a problem. And number two, I'd like to understand how we're going to police this. Is Tom going to weigh trucks? I mean, what are we really asking Tom to do? What's the point for tabling this? What's the direction that Tom?
To find out his direction, the way I took it at the workshop meeting, I'm not sure if you were there or not for it, when he brought this stuff out, it was basically, if I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, 550s, 450s he brought up, that said that was close to this. I think we should give him the chance to explain it in more detail to us, where he's going. That's the reason why I see it.
And he didn't do that at the workshop?
No, it was kind of clear until I thought it was clear until I read this evening. And I figure at least give Tom a chance to explain it to us and just say, hey, who, what, how, when, and why.
That's why we have public comment. Gotcha, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so roll call?
Thank you, Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Barton.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Ordinance on first reading. The public hearing, this is an ordinance on the first reading. Public hearing will be April 22nd at 7:30 p.m. Ordinance 2019-2. Ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank for calendar year 2019. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Rodney, you want to explain?
What this does is, the state each year sets what the appropriation cap can go up for operations. The statute has a different number in it. This year they set the number at 2.5%. What this ordinance is doing, allowing us to go to 3.5% so that we can bank the difference for the case we would need it in the future. This year in the proposed budget, or the draft budget that has been put in place, we need to use a prior year bank so that we can have in excess of the 2.5% to meet the needs for the court, the additional expenditures in the court this year. So this is just allowing us to bank each year. If this ordinance is not done, you're not allowed to bank any difference between your actual appropriations and what's allowed.
Any comments from the commission? Is there another roll call?
Ms. Brown.
Yes.
Mr. Lee.
Yes.
Mr. Moore.
Yes.
Mr. Yates.
Yes.
Mayor Barton.
Yes. 2019-3, an ordinance amending Chapter 9, Building and Housing Fee Schedule. Appendix. A motion? Then I'll make the motion. Second?
Second.
Committee discussion?
Was this a result of the workshop meeting in January?
Yes.
Is that where this came from?
Yes.
And actually, I asked it to be held over to the next workshop meeting because there were 2 members from the committee missing from the meeting, so I requested it to be held with that benefit.
And the thought process was the fact that we wanted to mimic what was happening in the township.
Yes.
Well, not exactly.
Okay.
The thought process, as I understand it, is our fees were much lower than most of, even where the state lies with the
That's right, okay.
fee schedule, and that's why. And we had a discussion, I think, the last workshop about
Yeah,
it.
I forgot about this piece.
And that's what it was, that we were trying to,
And if I'm not mistaken, the building department actually lost money last year?
correct, and that's why it's to prevent us from losing money. So that was the reason why the rates are being adjusted to, not that we're going to go to the highest, but to.
And the goal is going to break even.
Right, to break even.
Any other further discussion? Okay, roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Park?
Yes. 2019-4 ordinance repealing and replacing Article 8 in the Township Code entitled Public Functions and Similar Uses of Public Places. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Committee discussion? Mr. Sudbury, would you like to come forward? You had a lot to do with some recent changes to this ordinance, and
Yes, certainly, sir. What I did is primarily streamlined the definitions for clarity. I did change 300 to 250 because in any of our public areas, I was concerned that 250 people could have a substantial impact on the infrastructure in terms of sewage and trash, wear and tear on facilities. I want to make sure that those things are considered. I made sure that the special event in the next paragraph included all the events that we would be concerned with, and in what the special events do not include. I did take into account consideration and feedback from the committee, specifically with regards to making sure that the Pine Barrens Festival would fall under the jurisdiction of the ordinance. They've been very cooperative with me in the past. Jim Bond's been an asset and did in fact use the plan as recommended in here. And you can see that I took the funerals, weddings, processions from houses of religious worship, coordinated those together, educational activities directly under the supervision of schools, so if somebody hires out the school, it still falls under this ordinance. So if we have 5,000 lacrosse students out there and the school district is not managing that event, it falls under this ordinance. And lastly, normal camp activities at an accredited camp, which means they're certified and trained. That shouldn't be something that we have to treat as a special event because it's a normal operation of a business.
What's the way to, let's just say for argument's sake, back here?
Pine Tree?
No. Well, yeah, Pine Tree. Pine Tree's having a massive event. How do they communicate that to us?
If Pine Tree's
I
having...
forget your scout relationship for a minute.
Right.
But and we talked about this 6 months ago when we were first looking at this. How do we notify, or how does Pine Tree, what mechanism is in place for our emergency teams to know what's happening at Pine Tree?
They communicate that to us. They notify emergency management as well as notifying the squad, having standbys as necessary. And our squad also staffs the emergency, provides EMTs at most of those events. And then during the year, when it's summertime and the camp is open, they actually are required to have medical staff employed on their staff at the campsite whenever there's kids in the camp.
Okay, so there's a...
That's why I wanted accredited in there, because the
You know where I'm going, you know where my question is.
Yeah, and also knowing the camps as well as I do, for that camp to be overwhelmed, you can't even get enough cars in there because the parking lots fill up and such. So it's mainly scouts and their parents coming in for camp activities, a campfire, but they're not overwhelming the facilities because there aren't enough cars to get in to overwhelm the acreage and the buildings in that camp. So,
Thanks, Bob.
any other questions, folks?
Is this your original application? I don't remember.
Yes.
You doctored that a little bit.
I doctored it up a little bit based on the feedback from Tom Boyd, make sure that the fire marshal was included, and make sure all the pertinent folks that should get copied can get copied.
Thank you, Mr. Sundberg.
You're very welcome.
Thank you, Bob. Any other discussion? Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Gay?
Mr. Dees.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
Thank you. Mayor Park?
Yes. Okay, resolutions, 2019-48, authorized township engineer to prepare specifications and solicit bids for the 2019 road program. Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Dan, you want to talk about our road program for 2019? And could you address some of the comments we heard from the public?
Certainly, the plans are for Hawkins Road from 206 to Carranza Road, Kramer Road from Route 206 to Old Indian Mills Road, Holly Park Drive from Sweet Place to Sweet Place, and Sylvan Court from basically the whole cul-de-sac there, from Holly Park to the end. Then we'd also put a little bit of money in that for some traffic calming measures on Lee Drive, although we haven't determined exactly what we're going to do for that yet. We'll work with Mr. Kramer on determining just how we're going to address that. And that was just to address some concerns of some of the residents there on Lee Drive with some of the speeding. So those roads are in need of replacement. Are there some roads that are worse in town, some that are better? Yes, but what we're trying to do is tackle areas, do a couple different areas where we have some roads that are close together and sort of knock them out. We do have several grant applications that are pending out there for other roads. And we also have our road program from this past year, which is going to be starting next month as well.
How about Moore and Richter Road? That's been closed several times this year because of flooding. And I've gotten calls from some of the residents in that neighborhood. And full disclosure, my son lives on that street, but he's not just the only one. Other residents that live in that area had concerns about that flooding that takes place and the fact that that road flows quite a bit.
Yeah, in fact, we're simultaneously working with Doug on putting together a drainage improvement project similar to what we did in 2018, and Richter and Moore is on that list. So that'll be in a separate project, capital project, that'll just be addressing drainage problems in several areas of the township.
That's going to be a challenge.
Yeah.
On Friday, we took, the weather was warm enough that we could service the drain truck and get that up and running. And we took out somewhere around 13 loads of water out of that area, got the area down below the grate. Had some headway on the inlet boxes down to about halfway in the pipe. And Monday, this morning when we came back in, the groundwater had pushed the levels back up to just under the grate. So we're fighting the groundwater issue in that particular area right now because of the high water table generated by the extra 25 inches of rain we got last year, plus we are in the wettest season from January to April of time of year. So that combination has made it tough to keep that, but we're trying to maintain that when we do get rain and it floods the street, we'll be trying to pump it down until we can get the street clear.
It sounds like someday Dan may have a permanent solution to it.
We're working towards that.
Permanent improvement.
Dan, question for you. Hawkins Road, the intersection at Carranza, are we addressing that intersection? Because I'm getting a lot of complaints from residents when they go to make a right-hand turn, they cannot see if traffic is coming down Carranza from 206.
There's no plan to reconfigure the intersection, but we can look at sight lines to see if there's something that can be done, work with Public Works, maybe a little bit of clearing, or if there's something else that we can do to increase the sight lines. We do.
Yeah, that's the biggest complaint that I'm hearing from residents, is that they cannot see.
The county installed that intersection and established the yield instead of a stop. We can talk to the county again about the complaints about it, but the county maintains that intersection as of right now. They're the ones who repaved the portion coming out the turn lane
from Seneca
this past year under their funding. So that's been a county-maintained intersection since the high school went in.
Yeah. And Joe, Doug and I met with the county engineer last year, and he spoke about a possible roundabout, maybe Doug to put there, in conjunction with changing the driveway from the school to bring it out into Hawkins Road and put a roundabout at that intersection.
The county wants to put a roundabout. State of New Jersey's doing away with them, the county wants to put one out.
Yeah, they put one up in Chesterfield Township. They have one on Riverton Road in St. Vincent.
Where does that stand? I brought that issue up at the workshop meeting in January, or February, whatever month it was. Where does that stand?
I'd have to ask the county engineers, because I'm not sure what the schedule is for it. They were putting in for a grant, was it with the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission?
Yeah, they're putting in for the federal grant, and the federal, through the Delaware Valley Planning Authority is, I guess, talking with them and Lenape District about, but they would not entertain it up at the intersection of where their entrance is now, unless it included a combination to deal with Hawkins Road.
Right.
So that's where it's at. I don't know how it's proceeded since that.
Well, does it make sense to spend $393,000 on the intersection and paving Hawkins Road if there could potentially be changes at the end of the road?
We are not going all the way to the intersection. We're stopping short of that on the part of the road that we're still maintaining.
How far short are we going?
Where the county line comes back and where they started the paving.
Okay.
What's that, about 150 yards?
I don't think it's quite that far. I'm going to say it's probably 70, 75
feet.
Feet,
yeah. Feet, somewhere between maybe 50 to 100 feet, I think.
Any more comments?
Yeah, one comment, Mayor. Looking at the roads, I know we have a lot of roads, but again, grants aren't for certain. We definitely should be hooking up with Chemung Township about Carranza Road, 100%, to try to push it so we can get it completed and done. You know, I know we have to move forward with a lot of roads. The infrastructure is getting rough all over the place. I don't care if it's county, state, what have you, but definitely, I mean, grants aren't for certain, so I definitely would like to see what we can do to work forward with them if they're coming up in the future so we can finish it after this first grant process.
Well, the grant's in, Sam. I'm not sure, when we're going to hear about the grant, the change of administration. And the challenge we have is, at that portion, one side of that road belongs to Chemung Township, one side belongs to us.
Yeah.
And, unless Chemung Township commits to pave their side of the road, we looked at doing a portion ourselves and having them share it out. But when we spoke to them, it wasn't in their near plans, so their answer was to apply for the grant.
Maybe we could revisit it with them again.
We can always talk to them about it and see when they would be budgeting to do their portion of Carranza Road.
Absolutely.
Dan, in the piece for Hawkins Road, is there any thought, we've had multiple discussions at this table regarding traffic calming measures on Hawkins Road, everything from speed bumps to, what are those things called? You drive over them and make a lot of noise. What are those?
Rumble strips.
Rumble strips, thank you. Any thoughts to doing anything like that along Hawkins Road as part of this?
Nothing that we've looked at yet, but again, we can take a look at it as we survey and start prepping the plan specifications. We can take a look at that.
I'm just going to go out here publicly and make a statement. We just had the state troopers here talking about Hawkins Road is a problem. You made reference to it between Carranza Road and 206. I, in my right mind, can't see spending $393,000 to improve the surface of a road that's a problem for the state police to control speeders. When we did Sewage Place Road, the complaints we had on Sewage Place Road were the fact that they were glad that we did the road, but they were also concerned because the speed traffic increased. And to have the two state troopers come in and talk about how this is a problem, you're right, you made a reference to it, how it's an issue. I can't, in my right mind, in good conscience, support paving that road until we at least get some sort of understanding about what type of traffic calming measures we're going to have there, and or an intersection change at the end of the road. I'm not in a position to be able to support this.
Mr. Galletti, we had talked a couple years ago about, we had met with the residents, and you had done a lot of work getting the state police out there on a regular basis. It was my understanding that we were going to look at somewhere between 2 and 3 speed humps.
Yeah, we talked about that, that's right.
Between the highway and there, and I would fully support that moving forward as part of the project.
Can we build that into this improvement, this road improvement?
Yes.
I mean, because that's a different can of worms, and that's something I could support. But I think it's got to be separate. I don't know how you do it. I don't write this stuff, but I do know that, as you just referenced, we had residents that we had some extensive discussion.
We had residents that we had made a commitment to, that we were going to try to look at a way to reduce the speed. And because we have a change of drivers on that every year, there's no history to maintain with the majority of the speeders that use that road unless you slow them down physically some way. So,
if there's something like that built into the road program, I would support it.
Right. My concern with the speed bumps, Doug, and for the rest is, where does it end? Every time we pave a road, somebody's going to put speed bumps. I had the same problem on my street. People turn and they fly down my street, you know. New road, Crooked's Mow Road, you know, we can go on and on and on. What I'd like to see us do is get the speed limit signs, get them up and get them in that area, and get the help of the state police and train those folks. I'm not opposed to speed bumps, I'm just afraid that it's going to become contagious, and every time we do a road, we're going to be putting speed bumps in. And then, you know, what's the liability with speed bumps? If the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, the roads that I've gone down that have speed bumps, you cannot drive over the speed bumps at 25 miles an hour. You'll bottom your car out.
Make them slow down.
They're signed accordingly at 15, and they're striped accordingly. If you go into the village of Vincenttown now, there's 5 of them through town. And it has greatly changed the speed that residents and non-residents go through town. Whether you think that's better or worse, I guess depends on your perspective, and whether you hear people slam on their brakes or whether you would prefer to see them going through slow, you know. And they've done the same thing in Chatsworth, in the town of Chatsworth, and you forget it once and you'll remember it forever.
I did. I did,
100%. So what I'd like to know is, well, what's the added cost to the road program? What's it cost to put a
The
speed bump?
incremental cost, if you're repaving the road anyway, is not that much. I mean, you have a little bit, it's really on the scheme of doing all that, tons of asphalt, a little bit more asphalt, and then some stripings and a couple signs. So it's not a significant impact to the budget. Again, you're authorizing, if you approve the resolution, authorizing us to start doing the design work, so we can just incorporate it into the design. And then, you know, we'll work within the budget there. So I don't think, as long as you're doing the road program, you're repaving that road anyway, the incremental cost to just add the speed up is pretty nominal.
Dan, do you have an idea what the increased cost would be?
You might be looking at somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500.
That includes signage?
For how many speed bumps?
Per speed bump.
per speed bump.
Per speed bump.
Is it possible to, because we still have to plow the road, and that becomes a problem with plows. Is it possible, I know they use them at Seneca, they have portable speed bumps.
They're not
No.
really for roads, they're for
Okay.
parking lots. So when we do a speed bump, it's not the old speed bump where it's a couple feet, bump.
No, yeah.
You've seen them, they're humps now, so they ramp up, cross, and then down again. So they're designed, that's sort of the standard for a travel way, for road.
And I know the rumble strips would not be good because they're gonna be dealing with another problem when the residents are hearing the rumble strips, they're not gonna be liking that.
Right, and you can go as fast as you want over a rumble strip. It's not
It's
gonna
just
slow
gonna
you
make
down,
noise.
it's just gonna make a noise. And all you're doing is annoying the neighbors. Yeah. But the speed hump slows you down.
Right, so what happens with plowing?
That's not really an issue, well, it has been an issue.
Because they ramp
Well,
up,
I'm
they're
just
they're
asking.
usually not a
No, that's a
problem.
good question.
They're a longer, flatter area than what they are, than what the old speed humps were. So you're not getting the plow to trip. It's a reduction of speed when they get to it, the same as it is for everybody else to get up over it. It may be a little additional salt just before and just after, but I wouldn't want them all over town, but in certain areas.
No, I just wanna make sure that we're not gonna put it down and then plow it up.
I know people that tried that in Chatsworth,
But-
but it didn't work. But they actually, they've held together.
I just,
Good
you know, I'm
effect.
just questioning,
No, it's a
just
good
to
question.
make sure, because I don't know.
Okay, well, for this instance, can we get a consensus? Let's just do a straw vote so we can give Dan his direction. Joe, you in favor of the speed bumps for Hawkins Road?
Yes, I am.
Stephen?
Absolutely.
Sam?
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll make it unanimous. We just have to be cautious that we're probably going to have a lot more requests for speed bumps in other parts of this township.
And maybe we need it.
Okay, roll call?
Thank you. Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Resolution 2019-49, appointing Public Works labor to classification position of utility number 2. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mr. Kramer?
Okay. Roger has been with us for 7 years. He was a part-time employee for 5 of those years, and it was 2 years full-time. Holds all the qualifications, actually the utility 1, but we do not move anybody to positions at one time and not. So we'd like to move Roger up to utility 2. He has his Class A license, operates our middle and heavyweight equipment when necessary, and is capable and has proven to be a worthwhile employee for these 7 years.
Any comments from the committee? Okay, hearing none, roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes.
Thank you.
2019-50, authorized township administrator to accept New Jersey state contract proposal for purchase of a town hall gazebo.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion by the committee? Hearing none, roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
I was ready to say something. Doug, thanks for putting this together. It's as painful as to me to vote yes on a steel structure, I will, and that's because it's a nice looking structure, and Doug did his due diligence in terms of coming up with an alternative that'll work. So yes, and thank you to Doug.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes, Doug, before we move on to the next resolution, when you purchase that, what is the late date that it would take to get that installed? And the reason I say that is, we dedicate events to Dr. Stahl, and it would be nice to get him back here once the gazebo's in, and hopefully he's healthy enough to be able to do that.
It will take about 8 to 10 weeks once it's ordered to be delivered. It'll take us a couple weeks probably to get it up, depending on our schedule. We hope to have the plans before then, so we can have the concrete prepped and all that before.
Memorial Day, we'd be done? Oh, okay. Okay. You'll have to wait till public comment. You'll have to wait till, yeah, where we're at. Okay, so you're looking at a couple months.
We're looking at a couple months,
June?
we're hoping 15.
Okay, thank you. Okay, resolution 2019-51. Authorize cancellation of certain property taxes and refund pursuant to a 100% totally disabled veterans exception. Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Gordon?
Yes. Resolution 2019-52, authorize cancellation of certain property taxes and refund pursuant to a 100% total disabled veteran exemption.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Gordon?
Yes. Resolution 2019-53, authorize the township administrator to advertise for part-time fire inspector. Motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes, but I've got a question about it. Why are we doing this? Fire inspector.
It's required for the workload. When we took over the fire inspections, this was part of the original plan to have supplemental inspectors. That and due to the additional number of houses that are going up this year.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Gordon?
Yes. Okay, we have a trade permit of a motion for Urban Promise Ministries Incorporated, title for Promise 2019. The date is May 11th, 2019. And in your packet, you'll see is the insurance, and there's actually 3 different rides, 3 different routes. There's an 11.3 mile route, a 30.1 mile route, and a 62.6 mile route. 2 of those routes cross 206 in Tabernacle Township. Have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Is anyone from Urban Promise or for the ride here tonight? No? Okay.
Oh, well, Bob Sunbury is. Somewhere.
Bob, are you involved with this ride?
No, but I reviewed the permit and the locations.
Could you come up here so we can hear you?
Certainly, sir. So I reviewed the original application and originally declined the event because they wanted to have a rest stop in the center of Brickett's Mill and Constitution Drive on an intersection. And I told them that was unsafe and not in the best interest of public safety. So they moved it to a dental office parking lot just before the intersection of Hawkins Road and 206 so that they would slow down and stop all the bicycles before crossing 206 so people will get a rest stop. And then they'll come out slowly to the right and move across. So I modified it in the interest of safety and told them it would then be okay.
Do they have fire police or who does the crossing for?
They have motorcycles that have always helped out without a band.
Okay.
So,
And you're satisfied with it?
yes, I'm
Okay.
This is the one that used to start at Olson?
They moved it from Olson to Valentino's at the start and end point.
And they're also the ones that mark up the road?
Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you, folks.
Any other questions from the committee? Hearing none, roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Oh, did we get a motion? That's all?
Yes.
Do we have a motion? And a second. Roll call?
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Mr. Yates?
No.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, approval of minutes, January 2nd, 2019 reorganization meeting minutes.
Can I make a motion to table the minutes? There was a couple things that need to be some corrections that I just didn't get a chance to get to. Look at them rather than approve something that needs a little bit more work, I'd rather hold it.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
Okay, how about approval for the minutes of January 22nd, 2019, regular and closed session?
I thought you were,
Yeah, it's actually.
Yeah, that's all
for
three.
of them.
Okay, all right, then that carries for both.
There's just a couple things that, and I didn't get a chance to get to you, and I don't want to.
Okay. Okay, approval of the bills.
So I'm sorry, we want to go ahead and table January 22nd as well?
yes.
Yes.
Can I have a motion on that, please?
I'll make the same motion.
Yeah, Kim and I'll both, yeah,
Okay,
Kim and me.
All in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Approval of the bills. Take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Moore?
Yes.
Mr. Yates?
Yes.
Mayor Barton?
Yes. Okay, reports. Mr. Guthrie, do you need to report or you good?
Just a couple quick updates. The 2018 road program, which Arawak Paving, you may recall, started with some of the drainage work and preliminary work. They're remobilizing next week, and we'll start with some of the inlet work on Powell Place Road, and then paving for Powell Place and the first part of Carranza Road should begin sometime later in the month there. So that work will get underway. Also, the park project, all the concrete footings and dugout structures are in. They have a little bit of fence work, and we're going to try to wrap that up by next week.
Thank you. Minister, Mr. Kramer?
The Public Works Department has been working on the road trimming. We've worked our way through section 1, which is up at the other end towards Surrey Place. We're not quite complete, but have completed an awful lot of it, and we'll be continuing to work on that throughout the year. That's all I have tonight.
With the, okay, our solicitor, Mr. Lang.
A couple of things. With respect to Mr. Brooks's questions with regard to the professional services contract, the intent of the executive session was to discuss the proposals and then hopefully enter into a contract for that appraisal, which then would lead to potential condemnation of a section of property. But so it wasn't to negotiate for the property, it was to negotiate for the appraisal services themselves. It's my understanding, though, that the mayor has requested that the township consider, or the committee consider tabling that to get more specific information from those that submitted a qualification as to the expected costs associated with those professional services. So that will be handled when we get to that on the agenda. With respect to the gentleman's question with respect to commercial tags, I don't think that the commercial tags is dispositive of whether or not they're permitted in a residential zone, but rather it's the gross vehicle weight. So there's no restriction on commercial tags, but rather restrictions on the vehicles themselves, and they would have to comply with the number of vehicles and then that GVRW, you know, irrespective of whether it's commercially tagged or otherwise. That being said, I know that there are some minutes that are on for proposed release tonight that are previously approved executive session minutes. I would indicate that these are recommended for release from the committee, that the committee has been following the procedure that was established in the resolution in order to hopefully expedite and stay current with the release of executive session minutes. So the committee did meet, as is contemplated by the resolution to that effect, reviewed those, determined that these minutes were no longer necessary to be kept from the public and were not sensitive in nature and could be released, and so we're following that process. And that's all I have for tonight.
You want to identify what we're going to release to?
What's been recommended for release is the May 21st, 2018, September 24th, these are all 2018, November 26th, and December 27th minutes that have been previously approved as to form by the committee. And so that's what's recommended for release, and the committee would seek a resolution from the committee to go forward with that. Now, it's our understanding that the committee could also consider just allowing under the resolution to have the recommendation of the committee carry the day, so that there wouldn't be a second vote needed for that. So I guess I should say, barring any objection by the committee, it is recommended for them to be released by the committee, and the clerk will be directed to do so.
Anyone from the committee have an objection to releasing May 21, September 24, November 26, or December 27, 2018, as approved by the review committee?
Pete, is there anything that allows us to be able to add components in the form of documentation or any other pieces to minutes after they've been released?
Once they're adopted, you mean after they've been released?
Voted on and released.
Once they're released, they're out there in the public. The committee could always come forward and say, I think there was a mistake, and seek a resolution and a majority of decision to amend those minutes. That's never impossible.
Okay.
It's a little unusual, but I imagine it happens from time to time. So your question is, if they're approved as to content and form, they're approved for release, and then subsequently find that there's a glaring error or something that's problematic and you want to change them, can I ask the committee to revisit them? And the answer is yes.
Okay, thanks.
Anything else to report, people?
No, sir.
Okay, committee reports. Committeeman Yates?
I've had a couple, I should say, businessmen come to me over the past few weeks with a concern that Tabernacle Township is not business friendly. There's different things that they wanted to do at their business as far as selling things which are directly related to what, what I'm not going to name the businesses, but I'm just letting you know. They wanted to know who they can contact, what they can do, because they feel as though they're being hindered. If they want to have an event, they feel as though they're being hindered to have that event. I mean, different things, displays or whatever. So I recommended that they reach out to the administrator, maybe they reach out to Mr. Lemire, maybe he can give them some insight as to what to do, which direction to go. But it just concerned me that I've had two different businessmen come to me saying that Tabernacle Township is not business friendly. And we do not have a lot of businesses in this town. So we don't want to choke them out. We want to assist them in any way, shape, or form if at all possible.
Is it because of our zoning, Joe? Is that what their problem is?
Excuse me?
Is it because of our zoning? Is that what their problem is? Like we have a pretty strict sign ordinance.
I'm not sure if it's because of the zoning or because of rules and regulations that we put in place that restrict them from doing different things.
I mean, because if there's any particular ordinance they have a problem with, or whether it's zoning or township ordinance, Doug and I'm sure Mr. Boyd can take a look at it. We can look at it as a committee. Is it fair? Does it hinder them? Does it help them?
Apparently Mr. Boyd might be part of the problem.
Well, Mr. Boyd's job, as you know, is to enforce the ordinances, and if the ordinances need to be changed, that's our job to change them.
I believe that's why they reached out to him.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that'd be okay.
Mr. Lee, Committeeman Lee?
As Mr. Robbins had mentioned, I've been helping him along in terms of relationship building with legislators, decision makers at the state level and the county level. And I will say that I'm pleased that we made the decision tonight to put a letter together and help in that process. Recognizing that there's only so much that we can do, I think this is an outside-the-box approach, and I'm pleased that the committee made that decision to move forward. I know Glenn is very appreciative of our support as well. I had mentioned back at our last workshop meeting on the 11th that I was going to be up in Trenton on the 14th to meet with the Assembly Ag Committee and the Assembly Environmental and Natural Resources Committee. This is a joint committee on a Thursday afternoon on a day where they didn't have to vote. And we had the opportunity to be able to talk about forestry in New Jersey. And it was a hearing that had roughly about 15 speakers. I was fortunate to be able to be invited to speak. And a very simple approach that I used was that in terms of forest fire management, and I know this is near and dear to your heart, the Forest Fire Service can only do so much. And the point of the hearing was to discuss the issues that not only Forest Fire Service has in terms of their amount of equipment and manpower and whatnot, but also how the state approaches management of their land, specifically in fuel load reduction. The Forest Fire Service is a phenomenal organization, but can only do so much. And one thing that we need to begin to do is to talk about fuel loads. And what I'm getting at is that legislators are in a position to be able to talk about that and to have a different approach when it comes to forest management. Clearly, we are in a very volatile area and a very threatened area when it comes to forest fires, which you'd concur to that.
100%.
So one of the things I did at the meeting, which may or may not have been very popular, and I'm okay with that, but in California, the state has a fire commission board that had done a presentation in August of 18 and talked about their plans for moving forward with forest management. And correct me if I'm wrong, November the 8th or so is when the Paradise Fire happened. And 86 people were killed. And on January the 9th of this year, the governor of California issued an executive order saying we want a completely different approach to how we look at our forests. And at the top of the list was forest management, fuel load management, which meant cutting trees and thinning heavy fuel areas. So with that, there was a 180-degree change in terms of what California did. And the reason I bring it up is because our municipality and other municipalities like us are threatened by forest fire, period. But it's our responsibility, I think, as lawmakers, and especially at the state level, there's only so much that we can do, but to make the public aware of the importance of controlling, controlling areas around our homes, but more importantly, get lawmakers to think outside the box when it comes to managing fuel loads. We had, several years ago, we worked to make Tabernacle a fire-wise community. I was pleased to have the opportunity to be able to go and talk to Trenton about it. At some point within the next probably 3 weeks, we will have a visit from legislators from these two subcommittees to look at areas that have been burned, areas that have not been burned, areas that have not been touched in terms of forest management. So it's an ongoing issue, but it's something to certainly be aware of, that is we've got to communicate it to our community. And I'm not sure what the role is going to be here yet. We need to kind of figure that out. But at the very least, we've got the attention of lawmakers, and the fire in Paradise really did it for them. But now we're just getting the fire season. We've got an opportunity to be able to go a little farther beyond than just making sure that the guys in the red trucks are safe. We got to make sure the forests are safe. That's what it really comes down to. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Just two quick things. Had our first joint rescue training with the rescue squad and the fire company jointly about 2 weeks ago. So we got them working together. It was a very good turnout, I felt. Mayor Barton attended as well. There was a little classroom discussion, and they started off easy, you know, getting together with the trucks, going over all the equipment, and having a little dialogue between each other. So that's definitely a good step in the right direction, I feel, with two professional organizations, 100%. And then Mayor Barton and I met with the Tabernacle Fire Company, going over some budgetary stuff, coming up with a proposed budget, what was taken out, they were concerned with. So we have some open dialogue with them right now while they're putting the budget together for us to come back to the committee with for discussion. That's it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Brown? Okay. And Sam, the joint rescue meeting that you and I went to, it was encouraging to see how many firefighters from Tabernacle Fire Department number 1 were there, and we appreciate them coming out and collaborating with TRS and hopefully attend the other training sessions. It's a good networking event, a good team building event for two sides, or two committees, or two organizations, Tabernacle Rescue Squad and the Fire Department, to get together and work together. And you know, we encourage you to continue to do that, and look forward to the day when we get the training done and we can do joint rescue between TRS and Tabernacle Fire Department #1. With that, we're going to go into public comment, but before we do, I'm going to ask the board, the committee, to table the closed session that we had scheduled, only because what we received from the three companies that sent us a proposal. It's not really a proposal, it's a request for qualifications, and they gave us their qualifications only. They didn't give us a fee schedule, and would give us time to go back to them and ask them to submit a fee schedule, so that when we do look at their qualifications, we can also look at what their fees are before we choose one of the three that did respond. So I'd make a motion that we table that. Yes. Second. Second. Okay.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the second.
That'd be me.
Ms. Brown.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you.
There. Yes. Okay. Okay. Mr. Haynes, you wanted to do a report for TAA?
I actually have two things first.
Okay, good.
I want to keep my CFO hat on first.
Okay, good.
And just ask a question for my direction for the next meeting, for the work session. Are we going with any idea of what you want to do with the budget, or are we still going to be working on it at that work session?
I'm anticipating that as a committee, we're going to look at that budget and weigh in individually and vet through that budget, item by item, of what we think.
So we don't plan to introduce that right now?
Can we introduce that after? No? Do we for another meeting?
The issue would be is the changes that you want to do, it's a process to actually have to change it.
Okay. I would anticipate there possibly could be changes to the budget at that meeting.
Well, Mr. Barton, I do believe you have paperwork in front of you that you wanted to pass out that may change the budget.
That's correct, from the fire company
Right.
here, yeah.
So, I mean,
So it's, my question is just,
Yeah.
do I come prepared with draft budgets that are going to get introduced, or do I come planning to change the whole budget and possibly introduce, but most likely not if it's significant changes?
until I see those papers, I don't know.
Right.
Okay,
Sounds like the latter.
Yeah.
sounds like the letter,
Yeah.
which is fine.
Yeah. First, the committee will be prepared to discuss any changes that
I
that
just-
they would like to see into the budget, and then we'll build a consensus of what the budget's going to
Okay,
be.
I was just looking for what the guidance was for me.
We'll put your baseball
The
hat
second
on.
one, now I'm going to take my hat off and be a member of the public, and if you didn't know, I'm the volunteer baseball director for TAA. So I just wanted to let everyone know that I have volunteers that will be at Patty Boker Park on Saturday morning doing the cleanup, cleaning up all the leaves, making the park presentable for the year. And opening day for baseball season will be April 13th, Saturday morning at 10 a.m.
I take it Public Works is going to assist in the cleanup?
Basically, with the cleanup, the past practice has been the volunteers get the leaves in big piles, and Public Works helps out on Monday morning and
Yes.
handles the rest.
Hasn't changed.
Well, we encourage everyone to come out on April 13th.
If you want to come out on Saturday, we'll
Yeah, Saturday.
bring your rakes and leaf blowers.
Where the leaves going, Rodney?
Where do they go?
Yeah, where they going?
I don't know, Public Works takes them.
Leaf.
I just get them in a big pile. Public Works takes them from there.
Okay.
Okay, public comments? Mr. Callahan?
I listened listened to you.
Name and address, please.
Mike Callahan, 18 Moore Road West.
Thank you.
All right, many years ago, I was in my own business. All right, and I'm listening to people talk up here. Some little guy knew about it, and this guy knew about it, and you're harnessing people's creativity to be in business. I mean, I had a steak body truck, all right, and I had 2 pickup trucks, and I put them in my driveway. All right? And the only time people will find out is they complain because they don't want me to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We went through this with the scales, all right? They used to leave at 7 o'clock in the morning. They were there before all the people moved in. So I think we have to have a grain of salt with this commercial stuff that people, you know, have to leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. You know, maybe you have 2 pickup trucks. All right? What is it, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? So I'm listening back and forth. Just use common sense. All right? Don't make these stringent, whatever rules you want to make. You know, try to do a general thing. Then if there is a person, then you go talk to them. All right? So, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public? Mr. O'Neill?
Mark Levere, 32 Washington Way. A couple of things on some of the issues tonight. First of all, actually relative to what Mr. Callahan was saying, you know, I'm on the vice chair of the Land Development Board, and one of the things that comes in front of us quite often is people wanting to do things to their property. And if the neighbors have any complaints, it's that whether it's adding an outbuilding of some sort, is they don't want to have a commercial enterprise in a residential area. We all know that. With computers and with offices not having to be brick or mortar anymore, obviously that line's pretty blurred now. So you know, you can be a pretty busy contractor and still work out of your office, out of your home office, because you're working out of your phone and your iPad. So again, I think the one thing I just ask as you contemplate the solution to this gross weight issue is also a mechanism for A, putting it in front of the public so they're aware of it, but B, let's reinforce the fact that, you know, there's a difference between having a commercial, you know, having a commercial vehicle because you take it to work with you and running a business. Like I said, the one complaint we have in the Land Development Board is people, and the one thing I'm super sensitive to is people move into a residential neighborhood. The guy's a plumber, that's fine. He had an outfit somewhere. He's closed that brick and mortar down. Now he's got 2 trucks. Now he's got 2 trucks, and he's got another driver. Now he's got a third guy come in at 6 o'clock in the morning, and they got to leave from there. So I think it's a perfect opportunity as you address this gross vehicle weight thing to wrap that around some public awareness is the fact that here's what it is, here's why we're doing it, but there's going to be no tolerance for having a business, you know, that's going to have more than one employee running out of their house. Because like I said, I think that's the trend we're seeing. So I think it's a perfect opportunity for you to figure out the mechanism, be it on the website or a mailer of some sort, just making sure, or they have to register their vehicle. So again, I think it's a great opportunity just to kind of make sure we don't let this get out of hand as you go forward with that. Okay. Yeah, second thing, just real quick on the rumble strips. I don't know, Dan, what do you call those things? Those depressions they're putting on the WO lines now.
The county's putting on,
yeah.
On the center, they're like little mini rumble strips, just a center line warning.
We don't do that on any of our roads, right? That's really like a county thing. Okay, I guess I've talked to the mayor a little bit about since his background in utilities, the quality of the asphalt thing that you said isn't what it was years ago. It's too much to remix it or something. But I'll tell you what, I look at those and I say, I understand it, you know, if you don't want people drifting over a W line, but boy, I don't know how that just doesn't fill water and freeze and just collect debris. We're talking about the cost of maintaining roads. And it just looks like, how does that not shorten the life of these road surfaces? So I don't know what influence we have, and I guess if they're doing on roads that we don't maintain, maybe it's not relevant.
Yeah, they're just doing county roads.
Okay.
We don't maintain those, so.
Good, because I guess I think that's just that's a make work for repaving.
Ultimately, we do pay for that, obviously.
Well, yeah, that's true. Go there. All right, thanks very much.
A young man in the back, young man, you want to come up? Looks like you've been busy by looking at all the badges on you.
Dennis Zane from 14 Richter Road. I am working on my citizenship in the community merit badge. So I'm here to ask, do you have any plans based on the current condition of the community center for all the groups that use it?
And were you considering that location for a project?
Not really, but mostly because of all the groups that actively use it, in the condition it's in currently.
Okay, well, as you know, you meet there, right? And this committee has looked at that building, and we did get appraisal on that building, and we have had discussions about possibly selling that building. If we do sell that building, I can assure you, we have enough locations in this town for you to meet that are probably nicer than what that building is. You know, we have this facility, we have the firehouse, we have the TRS building, and we have a school. So whatever this committee decides, when they decide, if you need to be relocated, we'll be working with your scoutmaster to find the appropriate home. Any other questions you have?
How many merit badges do you have there?
I see
Are you working
42.
towards Eagle Scout, are you?
Yeah.
Good luck, young man.
Yes. Thanks for coming out tonight. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Lyle Manheimer, 5 Log Road. Is it the position of the committee, Township Committee, now you're going to conduct all negotiations with the rescue squad and the fire department, Tabernacle Fire Department, and no longer enlist the services of a public safety director? You guys will be looking at their budgets and doing all the budget negotiating and so on and so forth? Good for you.
Okay. As of right now, you know, our public safety director resigned last year. The committee has not brought up any need to have a public safety director. And if one comes forward, we'll have a discussion about that. Until then, our administrator will manage the budgets of Tabernacle Fire Company number 1 and Tabernacle Rescue Squad.
Okay, very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Lyle, just to clarify, the township does control the fire department. TRS is a separate entity. They,
Yes,
okay,
I understand.
so we do not control their budget in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Zane?
Good evening, committee. Keith Zane, 14 Richter Road. If you are not aware already, I have been appointed as the Scoutmaster of Troop 439 for starting in January. Mr. Lee reminded me, this is my first official duty coming to you as a representative because Micah Litwarna is receiving his Eagle Court of Honor on Saturday. I understand it's late notice, but having had learning from our other leaders, wondering if a proclamation would be possible from the township to Micah. So I just wanted to make sure it's an official request from the troop.
We received an official request.
Good.
And
Just want to follow it up.
I'm sure we will prepare.
Awesome.
a
Thank you,
proclamation
yes.
presented to.
He is in college, he is moved on from the troop, but we were meeting with him tonight after our committee meeting and making all of our arrangements for Saturday. Thank you for your continued support.
This Saturday, right?
Yes, this Saturday.
Keith, would you like us to present that?
If you have someone that is able to attend, 2 o'clock on the 30th at the Medford VFW, you're absolutely welcome.
I've done about 6, and they were awesome. It's a good event.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll prepare a proclamation, and I will be there, and if anyone else on the committee wants to attend, they're welcome to attend. Okay, anyone else from Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Stuart Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. I want to follow up on something that Committeewoman Brown mentioned regarding the parade permit. Are we allowing parade permittee holders to mark the roads? Is that something that we support, allow?
I'm sorry, allow them to do what?
Mark the roads? I gather from the comment that Ms. Brown made that they and perhaps others mark the roads in order to facilitate the rides that they have. I didn't understand the full scope of what you were saying.
Usually they put different colored arrows on the road.
Is that what you were referring to, Ms. Brown?
It was, and it depends on who it is. Sometimes it's in paint.
Yes.
And I've seen it, and that's what my comment was about, because I believe Mr. Kramer has told them numerous times not to do it, and depending on who it is. And sometimes it's not even someone that comes through that we know, they mark up the roads. And once it's done, you can't, obviously.
Yeah, I noticed that too. So is it necessary? Is that a good thing, a bad thing? Is something we
should say, yeah, here's a permit, but don't mark the roads? Do we have a more formal way of expressing our preference?
Express it in when we approve the permit.
In writing?
We may have last time.
Okay. I get it, this is a loose practice.
It's not a consistent practice by a large number of groups.
I was speaking about the township's practice.
Here's the bottom line. There are two opportunities to do this. One is the conversation that Bob has with the folks that are putting it together. But as you recall from earlier in the meeting, we have a public portion, we have a public hearing coming up in 2 weeks that talks about events. This is the type of event where that conversation happens. So if there's anything specific you would like to see written into the ordinance regarding marked roads, that's a good time to comment on it.
I'll do that. Guess it's on your plate as well.
It's hard to, Stuart, it's very hard to control, as you can tell from Doug's response. Because, and like Kim said, it depends on who they send out to do it. It's, I mean, because other townships may allow them to paint their roads.
And some may not.
And some may not. But the person that's going out doing it, he's so used to just grabbing the yellow spray can and just painting out on the road that he just continues doing it because he didn't take this piece of paper and read it.
I don't want to make a mountain out of a molehill, it was just I sense from Ms. Brown's comment that this was an undesirable action, and I'm thinking if it's something that is undesirable and we don't want, maybe we should be telling them this is undesirable and we don't want it.
Mr. Sunbury maybe will answer
on this, Bob.
Yeah, and this comes up frequently with these bike tours that come through and have different routes. So what they're doing now, what I asked them to do is use biodegradable stickers that they can put at the intersection, so as the bikes come through, they'll see orange, red, or blue, so they know which direction to go. But as the cars drive over them, rain comes, these things are meant to dissolve and go away. So, and I dissuade anybody from putting up any type of permanent marker.
Super, thank you so much.
Bob, I would suggest that in future permits, is maybe we could even put in the application, if any permanent markers are used, it may put any future permits in jeopardy.
Yeah, and that you're responsible for cleaning up any temporary markers,
Yeah.
posts you cut right away.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Mrs. Brooks?
Fran Brooks, Morris Meadow Road. I just want to correct the record regarding Carranza Road and some of the comments that Mr. Guzzi made. First of all, there's no other road in the township that is as bad as Carranza Road, and that's by his very own report and rating that was issued in 2018. So it's very disappointing that the committee would agree to consider bid proposals for two roads that, one, weren't even on this report by Mr. Kramer, past, present, future road proposal for Tabernacle Township. I mean, it just simply doesn't make sense that we have the worst road in the township and you guys aren't even really addressing it. You're addressing it through grants, which are totally unreliable. And the second point that I want to make, there are a couple of things. One, Mr. Kramer, you said that the township's made a commitment to residents on Hawkins Road. How about making a commitment to residents on Moores Meadow Road who probably pay more in taxes because they're large farmers than Hawkins Road? I don't want to pit people on Carranza Road on Moores Meadow against Hawkins Road, but I don't think there is a road in this township that hasn't been addressed in 35 years except for Carranza Road, the portion that just got the grant. There isn't a single road that hasn't been paid attention to within the last 35 years. But Carranza Road, our portion, has not been paid there's been no attention paid to it. And in fact, when we started grinding away at this issue, unfortunately, Mr. Guzzi even admitted it was observed that he wasn't even asked to look at that portion of Carranza Road. It only came about because of our pressure for you folks to look at it. So that's one thing. The other thing, it would be nice to see a commitment. And Mr. Borton, you talk about Chemung Township and how half the road is their road. But the problem is, you've already agreed to take $265,000 or $55,000, whatever it is, from the state and actually pave both sides of the road. You have not met with, from what I could tell, maybe you can contradict me and that would be fine, give me some more information, but you haven't even met with Chemung to attempt to make an arrangement with them to finish the road, okay? You didn't have any problem taking that grant from the state and covering their part of the road, because physically, I mean, you know, I'm not a road engineer, but it's obvious you can't just pave half the road. So it's common sense. And the other thing that's so disappointing about the actions that you're taking is that you have this report. You don't even adhere to your own work. And there's no evidence that you have even bothered to adhere to your own work. And the last thing is, Mr. Brooks raised a whole bunch of questions about the fee schedule. Not one of you took the time to answer any of those questions about the fee schedule, which are all legitimate questions. But there's just no information coming out, so it makes me wonder if you actually have any hard data that you work with in order to arrive. Oh, you're very welcome, Mr. Gordon. I just wish you would do the work, that's all.
In reply to the fee schedule.
It's a little bit late for that because you already approved the resolution.
Any more public comments? Yes, sir.
Adam Goldie, Moore Road West. I just had a question regarding proposal 29253, the fire inspector. Is it eventually the committee and the town's intent to create a local enforcement authority and collect the life hazard fees and the permit fees listed in subchapter 2? That's already settled. Okay.
We paid for it though too, because before we did that, the state inspectors went nuts and inspected closets. It was crazy.
Right. Yeah, I'm going through the fee schedule. I didn't see it listed at all in your, the update, the permit fees and whatnot. Just had a question. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the public? Okay, we'll close the public portion. As far as the fee schedules that was discussed, Mr. Boyd did come before this committee and he showed us what our current fees were, what the fees of surrounding communities were, and what the state recommended fees were. So the fees were adjusted under that guidance from Mr. Boyd. As far as Carranza Road, this township will continue to repair as it needs repaired. We have a grant into the state, and I didn't personally meet with Chemung Township, but others on this committee have, or staff have met with Chemung Township and learned that they had no interest in paving no portion of that road, at least in the next several years, but it was something that they would look at. So the end goal is to, if we get the grant, we use the grant to pave Carranza Road both sides. If we don't get the grant, then the goal will be to share the cost with Chemung Township and get a commitment from them. So at the end of the day, Tabernacle only pays for 50% of the cost of Carranza Road, and Chemung pays for the other 50%. With that, I have a motion to adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Question. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.